Scratch building a 1/8 scale sprint car using a 1/24 scale model as a template. You'll have to find a model that you can sacrifice because you have to cut up the pieces to use and trace as a template. You'll need a beefy soldering iron. Here's one that goes up to 400 watts. Several lengths of brass tubing, 1/4 inch and 7/32, so you can put the 7/32 inside the 1/4 inch to make it stronger and to make it bend better so it doesn't kink when you bend it. Push pins so you can tack the pieces to a board when you're ready to solder. And here's a bender. Got the bender at a hobby shop. Wasn't too expensive. And a vise so you can hold the pieces sturdy when you're filing them. Of course, a round file. This one here is a 1/4 inch file for chainsaw blades, which is a true 1/4 inch diameter, which works out great when you're doing the final filing to get the pieces to fit. Here's a tube cutter, so you can make a nice clean cut. And for soldering, here's some acid flux by Odie, which contains muriatic acid and a few other nasty things, so you got to be careful with that. So I pour a little bit of it into a jar, a little bit at a time, and then use a cheap brush for applying it. And the solder is from Radio Shack. 96% tin, 4% silver. And the more silver there is, the stronger it makes the solder, the joint. So you take the piece of the model that you put together. That upper portion is a separate piece, so you got to glue that together. At least on this kit it was. And you tack it to a sheet of paper. You trace it out. I think you can see that. Scan that in to your computer and bring it into Paintbrush, Windows Paintbrush, and then you can print it out at various percentages to make it larger. 110%, 150%, to the size that you want it to be. And what I did is to take measurements off the model and put them into an Excel spreadsheet. That first column is the measurements from the model, and the next column is what they should be to represent a 1/8 scale. So you take the 1/24 scale measurements, multiply by 24, and then divide by 8, or you just simply multiply by 3, and you get the same result. So after you print out your sheets, you take the image and you flip it 180 degrees so you can get a left side and a right side. And then you tape them down onto a board so you can tack the pieces in place. So now this side here is ready for the first few pieces to be welded, to be soldered. So let's solder the first joint here. Get the flux on there. This cleans it up as well. Tint your soldering tip. And go to town. Now it's taking it underneath. still warm. Get the other side. And of course, a sprint car wouldn't be complete without a V8. This one's going to have a supercharged V8. This is the Parma Chevy V8 model, and inside it's going to house the electric motor. Hard to tell. And that shaft coming out is the drive shaft. I rigged up some gears. So there's the motor driving the gear. And then there's also a third gear underneath that goes out to a shaft right here. And that shaft is going to drive what would be the crankshaft pulley that will then drive the belt for the blower. I did this once before on a tent scale monster truck. That turned out pretty well, so I want to do it again. To be continued.